Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of the AI Rebels podcast. We're excited to be here. I'm Jacob and my co-host Spencer with the great hair. As you see, he was combing it before this to get ready for all of you.
I had to look my best.
That's right. We just wanted to talk a little bit about things we're seeing in AI today. Honestly, there's some really cool developments, some interesting ones. I shout out to Deep News, whose founder we had on just a couple episodes
We'll
ago.
probably bring him on again.
That's right. I'm blanking on his Twitter handle. Remember it off the top of your head?
Too, because it does not match his name.
We'll drop it. We'll drop it below.
We'll put it in. Yeah, we'll put it in the
everyone give him a follow. Some cool stuff going on there. And I've been using his app to stay apprised of everything as it combs the whole internet and Twitter and everything. One thing I saw, which is encouraging for our AI revolution, is it says AI market projected to reach $1.33 trillion by 2030. That's like 6 years from now. And the AI market 5 years ago was like nothing. It's insane how fast this is all growing, and it's touching everything.
And I think that we're even seeing like a little bit of like that initial hype bubble burst right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been interesting to watch how there's some people who have kind of lost the faith because it hasn't immediately turned around returns, but yeah, like it's just gonna keep going, guys.
Yep.
Even if it doesn't get much better than it is right now, like there's so many use cases that we can explore. And at a bare minimum, it's gonna get a lot cheaper to run. Like even if like the power of it doesn't get better, like we're gonna figure out how to make it cheaper. I know we will.
Yeah, and the progression, it's interesting because it's spiked and it hasn't come down. It seems like it's spiked and then just kind of plateaued, and I feel like a bigger spike will, like, it's just going to keep going up. I don't think it'll ever come down.
No, I agree.
You know what I mean?
There are some people. So there was some research the other day about training image models on successive generations of images. And it found that it degraded really quickly. And so there are some people who are like, oh, look at this. This means that AI, like in 2 years, like it's going to be terrible because like they just have to keep training it on terrible outputs. But what people don't understand is that this paper was exploring specifically like, hey, what if the only thing that we train it on is images that were generated by it, right? Like over and over again. Whereas that's not how it works with training, right? When you actually train, you're training, it's either extremely well vetted synthetic data. So it's, thank you, Mac. So it's, it's been vetted, it's been generated in Blender or some other, image generation software, etc., something like that. Or generated by AI and then vetted to make sure that, like this is of sufficient quality to train on, right? Like there's like a whole mix of data that is used in training. And this particular research is also in contrast to a lot of other studies that have been done that have shown synthetic data has a lot of promise. So I'm going to keep beating the drum that I keep beating. Don't bet on this tech to fail. Because there's so many people who are making that bet, and I think that it's horribly ignorant, and I think that it's just going to lead to further confusion and pain for them in a couple years from now when a lot of like the deeper work that's being done like really starts taking off in the mainstream. Because that's another thing is like, and I'm not even at the forefront, right? Like I am hanging out with dudes hacking away on projects, right? Like, and I get snippets and pieces leaked to me here and there from, their cooler friends who are working like truly at the cutting edge. And like, there's some crazy stuff coming. Both from like the big AI labs and just individual people hacking away on different projects, etc. But this work takes time. It takes time to be done, even in the age of AI. Like it's
not instant.
doing something sufficiently big takes time.
Yeah. And I think it'll reach a critical mass. It has to permeate
Yeah.
the landscape, you know what I mean? And we're seeing that for example, I saw this morning that let me pull this up. They are now applying AI more and more to weather forecasting. It's just like something
Yeah.
little, but I like to go on walks, and when it says that there's like a chance of rain or that there's no rain and then it pours rain, I'm like, how does this happen? I am confused in the 21st century how we're still struggling knowing if it's going to rain. But let's see, at the University of Calcutta, they've used AI, and their accuracy for predicting the weather is increased by 85%. It's not like a 5% increase, like 85%. And it
that's
says
huge. And
they've reduced losses from extreme weather for farmers by 30%. That's a third. Like that's
huge. And
and
that's something
it's
that I was
like
going to point out
predicting
is
the
like,
weather, you know?
exactly. And and with, with climate change and with weather becoming more unpredictable and with like wider variation, right? Like we see like, we get like those massive polar vortexes in the winter a lot more often now. And like,
Yeah.
you see massive spikes, heat waves in the summer as well. Having this technology to predict when these are going to happen, earlier and more and more reliably is going to be so important. And like we're already like pretty good at it, but like every little bit helps.
Yeah.
And every little bit gets humans closer to not to go too utopian with it, but like the end state of humanity of like, hey, like we got all our problems solved. That's probably never going to happen, but you get the point, right? Like
But the idea.
It's every little bit of knowledge and ability to understand our world better moves us forward, and enables safety and prosperity.
100%. And it's just those little, and that's what I mean is I think AI is just going to slowly permeate everything until it's
everywhere.
touched everything. and then people like the cultural social acceptance will be there, which will knock down a lot of roadblocks, which then the acceleration of that progression will just go off the charts, I think.
I agree. And what's interesting is I think that we're starting to see kind of the seeds of change start to sprout a little bit in terms of sentiment towards AI, generative AI particularly. Like for example, today there was a news in the I think it was Salt Lake Tribune, about, and I need to go read the article. I just barely skimmed it earlier before I took my shower. But essentially, it was an article about a teacher and a student who have found a lot of really good uses for AI in the classroom. And I think that it's a good sign that articles like that are being published. Like it's a good sign that the more positive aspects are being amplified rather than like, hey, look at like, these idiots, who created an AI bot for, I don't know, making insults online, right?
Yeah. Right.
Just to use a silly example. And yeah, it's encouraging to start to see people more broadly understanding the potential of this technology and seeing what a lot of us who have been excited about it for so long have been saying all along,
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not like I blame people for being wary of the technology either, right? Like it kind of came out right on the heels of the NFT wave, and there was lots of cynicism about the NFTs, right? Because there were so many people who were like, oh, this is the future, and it's like when it was clearly not the entire time. So I understand why, like the next thing that comes along that says like, oh, this is the future. I understand why their default mode of belief is to think like, oh, like this is just pure hype. But it's not hype.
Yeah. It's
I don't know how many
now.
different ways I can say that, but I'm going to keep saying it.
We will preach it from the mountains.
Yeah. We're going to sound so repetitive by the end of everything.
But then in 10 years, they'll be like, they were right. They were right.
We'll make a little documentary about our experiences, a look back. 10 years of AI rebels.
Yep. Did you ever read the book Ready Player One or see the movie? I know they came out with the movie.
No, but I'm roughly familiar with it. Like,
Okay.
the idea.
So the premise, right, is it's interesting because it kind of blends. It was way ahead of its time. I think it blends hardware with like AI, where people you wear a suit and you have full encompassing headgear where you are playing this game in an AI world, right? And you have your character and all these things. But it's like an empire. It's like the ruling body basically is like the owners of this game. Everyone plays it, and that's where your real life is not Earth, but this like AI world. Anyway, it's really, really interesting. And I'm seeing more and more as we're talking about applications of AI. I think it's obviously already in gaming and games, but I think there's going to be a huge pivot there once it's perfected and honestly it might change to where there's just like one game might just eat all of them once they get it figured out, because then it basically is all of them. You know what I mean? Like,
you know what it's gonna be? It's gonna be Fortnite. Like, Fortnite is
but real,
is the final game. I'm only half joking when I say that. Like, Fortnite has the distribution and the player base, and they're building. I mean, you can play Lego games inside of Fortnite now. I haven't played it in forever because I don't care about playing Fortnite. But it is insane how big the platform has gotten. It's gonna be Fortnite or it's gonna be Roblox. Like, those are the two options here.
They'll do a partnership and just eat all the others. But like, if you think about it, because there still hasn't been enough of a blend and marriage of AI and hardware. It seems like to me. I think that's a big next step for a lot of industries. Gaming for sure, but also everything, medical, everything in that realm. But it will be fascinating to see once someone is able to make that jump. I think that's going to be another big spike in AI usage and excitement and progression. You think about what can be done once it's terrifying, but also extremely exciting to think about.
So there's
the marriage of hardware and AI.
Today, there's an AI chip startup. It's funny that you mentioned hardware, because literally just today there's an AI chip startup called Grok, GROQ, as opposed to Elon's GROK.
I was like, I know Grok. I know Elon. Don't worry.
Yeah,
it's not much of a startup.
So this is a different company, and they make tensor processing units. I believe is what they make. Basically, it's essentially, it's a processing chip built for AI specifically, and they just announced a raise of $640 million today.
What?
Yeah. So
wow.
to build more tensor processing units. Essentially, they're making the bet that in the long run, their architecture is going to be better for AI than NVIDIA's GPUs. So it'll be really interesting to watch to see if these tensor processing units end up being kind of what you're describing of like the total marriage of AI and hardware, or if NVIDIA has just such a big lead by now that they're able to keep just piling on Moore's law, essentially. just keep piling on more and more compute on top of it. Because I agree. I think that there are, and I am admittedly, like, I cannot claim to be any type of knowledgeable about physical architecture of chips beyond like the very basics. But it does seem like, to me as well, that your general observation is true, that there is not yet a physical architecture that has been completely optimized for AI that has, broad enough adoption to be considered industry standard or whatever.
Yeah. And is useful enough for the everyday person.
Yeah.
Right? Amazon,
exactly.
Tesla, they have these AI robots in their factories, but like, it's not mainstream. It's not realistic for the world. And its use cases aren't enough yet. So I think that'll be a big jump.
I'm just amazed at the products that people are building on top of AI right now. I want to to ramble on that for a moment, because there's a couple opportunities in AI that I think are fundamentally like the most exciting opportunities. First is knowledge is really temporary, extremely temporary, even in like a digital age, right? Where everything gets tweeted, everything gets TikToked, everything gets posted on Facebook, Reddit, etc. Right? All of that knowledge is still incredibly temporary. There are so many cases, someone has a ton of comments on Reddit, say, for example, and they have a ton of comments about how to sear the perfect steak. But then one day they're like, I'm sick of Reddit. I'm deleting my account. I'm deleting all my comments. Those comments are probably archived somewhere, but they might not be, right? And so what's so exciting about AI, and I've talked about this many times before on the podcast, which is like the ability to freeze and crystallize that knowledge.
Yeah, for sure.
And pass it down. Because like, if you think about it, that's sort of the fundamental problem that society has always been trying to solve. Like, how do we pass down knowledge to the younger generations in a sustainable, in a way that it sustains itself over, totally. 1 or 2 generations. And this is, to me, like the most exciting development on that front since the printing press. Like, it's
like, oh my gosh. It's so, you think about how much knowledge has been lost over time, right? How long it took people to figure out how the Greeks built their aqueducts or the Romans built their aqueducts. Like, there's so much knowledge that is gained and then lost. And because of that, our progression, right, is up and down. What you're saying, I think I agree with, will change the progression of the human race to be much more linear. And
no, exactly. And it's like, and then even on just like a personal level, it's like I have written and lost so many notes, essays, debate cases, etc. Right? So much knowledge that most of the time it's not relevant to my day-to-day life, right? Like, I don't need to go back and reread that debate case that I wrote for a tournament in 2011, right? But every now and then, like, that is relevant. Every now and then there's information that I know exists back there that I can no longer go access because I don't know what happened to it. I don't remember where I left it. So there's products that people are developing to address that much more comprehensively with AI than we've been able to so far.
It's exciting.
And that's exciting. It's just it's a beautiful wide world out there. And then I don't know, it's exciting to see the number of creative tools being built as well. There's so much concern from people that AI is going to eat all creative jobs. And I don't think that that's true at all. I think that it's going to enhance creatives more than ever. And sure, it might raise the bar for making money off of, selling digital art online. But I think that we need to ask ourselves, like, do we need people who can make tons of money selling digital art online?
Right. It'll also enable the creativity of far more people. I think of how many people are just halted. They have a creative idea. They just lack the creative skills to create it.
Yeah, exactly.
This really brings to the masses that ability.
And then, and then there's a lot of cases. There's a number of artists I follow, AI artists I follow, who have taken to AI particularly because they are, disabled in some form. So, like really debilitating arthritis or something like that, right? Where it's like they can't use their hands,
Yeah.
And AI has opened up entirely new worlds to them that weren't possible before. And that's a beautiful thing. And really we shouldn't turn our backs on that.
Totally agree.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to cover off, or feel like we kind of got it all?
I feel like I think that was good. There's exciting stuff going on.
Yeah.
I can't forget about it.
We'll be getting some more guests soon. Don't worry, guys. We've been busy this summer with our lives, but we're getting the guest chain revved back up again.
Yep. We have people in the pipeline. We just gotta get it out there. So stay tuned.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for tuning in.
Time.
Oh, and before signing off, I did look him up. I didn't want to not give him credit. Nikolai Yakovenko. Follow him. Founder of Deep News on X. He's great.
Excellent.
Check out the episode. Thanks, everybody.